Dyes. W contains vitamins, amino acids, a nootropic, and 150 milligrams of caffeine. W's products are made in the USA in an FDA-inspected facility that strictly adheres to GMP manufacturing guidelines. All of the flavors are unique and custom-made by W, and you'll never taste our taste anywhere else. The best part about it is they're affordable. W's drinks come out to about $1 per drink, much cheaper than Starbucks or any of those canned energy drinks. To learn more, visit w.gg.com/discount/MRTipton33 and place your order today. Use promo code MrTipton33 and save today. W Energy, be better. What's going on, everybody? I want to tell you about my new friends over at Cleverman. Visit them online at becleverman.com. What they gave me was the energizing face and beard scrub along with the Cleverman face scrubber. And trust me when I say this, the energizing face and beard scrub smells amazing. Combining it with the face scrubber, making sure that your boy was looking as good and sexy as possible, opened up a whole different sensation in my face that I haven't ever felt before. I felt so clean, so fresh, and so clean, like Outcast said, and it helped me feel like I was ready for my day. Make sure you visit them online at becleverman.com and follow them on Instagram at clevermannyc. The link is up in my bio if you want to check out all the amazing products they have. Visit them online, becleverman.com. With Mike Tipton, hanging out with you here on a Friday morning. I'm bringing in my dude, Danny Hoben. We are doing our first, I guess, are we still calling it Danny on the Diamond? What are we going to be calling it, Danny? Whatever it is, you're here to talk about Major League Baseball. You were a part of covering spring training and, of course, going out to the World Baseball Classic. We'll talk about all that coming up in just a little bit. How are your Arizona Diamondbacks doing, Danny?
I mean, they're doing good. They're playing like 500 baseball right now in spring training, but spring training is spring training. So it's just to get out there and, I feel like the top 20 guys pretty much have a solidified spot unless they're striking out every at bat. And there's always those 5 or 6 guys that are fighting for a spot. But yeah, I mean, they look good. I mean, they look good. They're starting 5, solid 4, top 4 look good. The 5 spot kind of looked like there was somebody penciled in there. And then if he wasn't going to work out, they're going to have somebody else do it. And now he's kind of hurt. So that's going to be like a little bit of a question mark, but they look good.
So you've gone out there to spring training. And you know what? Thank you to the Arizona Diamondbacks for actually allowing us to be out there, this ragtag organization of me, you, and the duct tape and bubble gum that hold the whole thing together for me. Like, thank you to the Arizona Diamondbacks for actually believing in us and letting us do this stuff. You also went out to the World Baseball Classic. That was in Tucson, where you're currently living right now. What was that like, dude? Because you put up some awesome pictures of that on your social media.
Yeah, that was wild. I think, the only negative thing I'll say is I think the city of Tucson, where we don't get a lot of stuff here, we could have done a better job of marketing it, because I don't know if the city knew how big of a deal having those games in Tucson, was. It was almost looked at almost like a minor league game maybe or something by, I think, the city. So maybe 50 to 60% sold out. So I thought it was going to be like, I mean, to me, we all remember when Shohei Ohtani struck out Mike Trout for the final out to win the World Baseball Classic for Japan. And I mean, some of these players are saying it's more intense and they're more proud to play in the WBC more than they are in the World Series. I mean, it just shows it's the World Cup of soccer. I mean, it's baseball, and it's a huge thing. So it was amazing. The teams that were here when I was, going and interviewing some of their players was Team Germany and Team Brazil. There was 4 teams total. There was the Chinese Taipei team was here, and Colombia was here. Colombia being the front runner, they're the only ones that had actual, a handful of major league guys on their roster. But yeah, just really cool for the city, really cool. watching them take batting practice. You kind of walk in there thinking this is Team Germany. They only have, I think, 2 guys in any major league organization, both in the minors, both low A or rookie ball. So you kind of walk in there thinking, are they going to be swinging and missing in batting practice? No, everybody can hit, everybody can pitch. Pitchers are throwing, high 80s to some guys mid 90s for Team Germany. So amazing baseball. It was really a cool experience.
I love that your thought process is, are these guys going to swing and miss in batting practice? Like, how often do you see someone swing and miss in batting practice, Danny? Like, let's be honest, man.
Well, not that often, but we're so used to watching the WBC where it's like, USA's playing, Great Britain, and half of their team are firefighters in London. So how good at baseball are they? And then you see them in person and you're like, this team would beat the crap out of most Division I baseball teams, and it was a little bit of an eye opener for me. And then I had to remind myself too, that the 25 guys that were on Team Germany's team, I mean, those are the top 25 guys in the entire country of Germany. Like, out of everybody that lives there, everybody that plays baseball, those are the top 25 guys. So the baseball was really good. It wasn't sloppy. It was very organized, very well coached. The strategy that Germany had coming in to the WBC, knowing that they were a little bit shorthanded, knowing that they were going up against teams like Colombia and Brazil, who are more talented than them. I thought the manager who I got to talk to, I thought he did great of squeezing out a couple wins. I mean, for example, first 2 games that they played in, they had 22 walks in their first 2 games at the plate. So very patient. They were playing small ball, bunting guys over. Anything they had to do to win. They didn't go up there saying, this is our chance to, have some of our guys maybe get a chance with a major league team, swinging for the fences, trying to hit home runs. They didn't go. They were there to win and do anything that they could to try to win no matter what. And it was really cool to see.
What part of, like, because I love the World Baseball Classic, right? Like, you're right. All the guys that are playing in it are always like, this is a bigger event than the World Series, even because, like you said, they represent their country. And for a lot of people, that's still a huge thing, a huge part of their, individual identities, right?
Right.
What could have been better about it? Because I feel like the qualifiers, even for me, someone that loves baseball, I didn't know that was actually happening until you told me that it was happening. And I feel like that's been one of the issues that baseball has, right? Is baseball has stars. They got Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, Shohei Ohtani. It's a long list of stars, especially Shohei Ohtani. And we see that now they're starting to market, but it feels like these ancillary events, they could have done a better job themselves, not just the city of Tucson, but Major League Baseball in general.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like I said, that was my only little complaint was, I thought if I wanted to buy my boys, my kids, some tickets to go and watch the final game to see who was going to move on, who am I going to have to talk to? Because I'm sure it's going to be sold out. And that wasn't the case. So, yeah, I do think it's like that. I think it's a little bit of a case like how Division I college baseball was looked at 15, 20 years ago even. I remember when I was playing at a junior college, that playing Division I baseball was kind of like, if you're not good enough to get drafted, then go play D1 is what our mentality was. And it was kind of almost looked at as like a step down almost. And nowadays, Division I college baseball has done a great job of marketing better, their players. I mean, I remember watching when I was in high school, Division I college baseball on TV, and all their pitchers would throw 85 to 87. And I thought, well, this guy will never get drafted. He'll never make it. Just because he doesn't have the arm strength or whatever. And they had 1 or 2 guys that would hit 25, 30 home runs a year. Other than that, it was guys hitting 230, 240. But nowadays, that's not the case. Now you see a lot of Division I games and everybody's throwing low to mid 90s. It's more like watching a good minor league team play, which I thought was awesome. So whether that's convincing college to play, whether that's NIL, regardless of what worked for them, I think the WBC could have done a better job with that, because you're right. It was looked at almost like it was, like a junior league that was competing, almost like when USA used to play in the hockey thing, whatever, when they would play like USSR, where they play Russia back in like the 80s, or that movie Miracle. And it was like, we couldn't have any NHL players play because we were too good. So we played a bunch of our junior guys to compete against the rest of the world. I think that's kind of how people looked at this round of the WBC. It's just going to be a bunch of guys out there just doing whatever they can. And I don't think that is, I mean, we saw what the WBC has done on the big stage, selling out crowds in Miami, selling out crowds in Tokyo, selling out crowds all over the world where they're playing. And it's a massive, massive crowd, and the energy is phenomenal. But then the round right before that to play in, the stadium's half empty. So, yeah, I definitely think we could have done a better job as Major League Baseball, the WBC, whoever, to market this thing better, to try to get more people out there.
Because that was the thing that I keep thinking about, right? Is like you have so many fun storylines in baseball, like, you know, the Braves re-signing Ronald Acuna Jr. to like $100 million contract, where if not for that injury, this is a dude we're talking about that's like a $400 million player, if not slightly more than that, right? And, you know, everyone's talking about it yesterday, like, oh, this is such a bad deal for the Braves. I'm like, no, dude, that's a bargain. Like,
amazing.
If you can get him back healthy, that's just like a mind-blowing deal that you were able to get, because look at what Juan Soto went for. And I don't think Juan Soto healthy is what Ronald Acuna Jr. is healthy.
I agree.
Like they're leaps and bounds different from each other. But I don't think most people out there know who the stars in baseball are right now. Outside of you and I, maybe, like there's a handful of people out there, these diehard baseball fans. And it's because baseball just can't seem to get the marketing right. And I don't know if you're one of these people or not, but like I'll go on like Instagram Reels and I'll watch like the old Greg Maddux pitching videos and like Barry Bonds hitting stuff. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, we've had to have had good pitchers and great hitters since then. Why aren't we seeing those videos now?
Yeah, or better. I think the league has improved. I mean, just in velocity alone. I mean, when I played 20 years ago, the major league club might have had one guy that could hit 99. Let alone triple digits. Now every single team has a guy and multiple guys that can throw upper 90s or hit triple digits. So I think it's improving. I think even post steroid era, I think the hitting's better. I think the fielding's better. I think overall it's improved as a game. I do think a little bit that you and I, being in El Paso and Tucson, we're not in big baseball cities. I think that if maybe we lived in, you know, like St. Louis, or we lived in, you know, some like Boston, like some of these places that have a huge baseball following, or even LA. I think that maybe we could get, because even casual conversations at my job, like talking to people about baseball, they're just not, it's not the big popular thing, yet the league and the teams still make great money. And whether it's 162 games that they're playing, you know, maybe that's a lot of the ticket sales or what have you. But you're right. The popularity, if you were to grab an average sports fan who doesn't love the NBA, doesn't love NFL, MLB, and you asked him what's the most popular sport in America, I think he would say NFL first. I think he would say NBA second and MLB third. Whether that's true or not, based off a statistics thing, I think if you were just to grab some random Joe off the street and ask him, that would be the order it would go in, which to me is shocking as well. But it's just kind of, you know, it is kind of one of those games, like a more exciting, this might sound crazy, but a more exciting version of golf. Like, unless you love golf and you're obsessed with golf and you want to watch the freaking on Sunday mornings when they're playing and it's all quiet, it could be the most boring thing in the world to me. Like, unless Tiger's freaking running away from a bunch of chicks in the crowd, like, I could give a shit about golf, you know? Like, it's just, it's one of those things that I've tried to play and I'm terrible. It's boring. And a lot of people would say that. A lot of people say they'd rather go to a game and just be a MLB game and sit out there and drink some beers and just kind of watch. And at the end, they're not sure who really won. They're just out there to have a good time because it's a cool environment. But watching it on TV is not the most exciting thing in the world. I mean, you could not be a sports fan and watch Anthony Edwards crap all over Antetokounmpo, like in a like dunk on him or whatever. And anybody, even whether you like sports or not, would be like, dang, that was sweet, you know? But baseball, we don't really necessarily have that.
I'd love to watch just like, not even the dunk, like the literal crapping on him. I think that would be, you know, that's something worth watching. Like, I mean, you're the one who brought it up, guy. Don't give me that look. Like, I think you're down to watch the crapping on him.
I'd watch it. Yeah,
so,
I'd watch it.
Like, obviously I want to talk a little bit more about baseball and stuff coming up, but I wanted to show you this video because if you're a kid out there and you want to play baseball, or you have a kid that wants to play baseball, this guy right here proves, along with Greg Maddux, like, you don't have to have an absolute cannon. As long as you know what the hell you're doing and you got arm angles and stuff like that correct, you can do all kinds of things, Danny. So I want you to look at this. and I want to see if you can give me the same appreciation for it being a fellow lefty. You were a flamethrower compared to me at what, 91? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
An absolute flamethrower compared to me. So let's see this.
Oh, replay that pitch right there. There it is. See the replay of that pitch right there. There it is.
Just like he throws away the fastball, so it goes way the hell up, throws the curveball at the exact same arm angle, and it's in for a strike, man. Barry Zito was a monster. And if you don't know who Barry Zito is, you need to start doing a Google search.
You know what? And I don't know if I can run and grab it real quick, but I have an authentic Barry Zito jersey in my closet right now.
Oh, this guy.
I'm a massive Barry Zito fan. That dude's, I literally wore my high socks because our colors in high school were green and gold, just like the A's. And so I used to wear my socks the same. I asked my high school coach if I could be number 75, and he was just like, dude, our numbers go like 1 to 38. So like, no, you can't have 75. But I'm a huge Barry Zito fan. And he was one of those guys that like everyone was so worried about his big, nasty curveball. He had a good change too. He had an underrated changeup too, that he would blow 86 by people that could not hit his fastball because they were so ready for off speed. And so he was good with his control and hitting every point. So yeah, Barry Zito, man. I mean, him, Mark Mulder, and Tim Hudson, when they were the three big heads of that starting rotation, I mean, that was a fun time in baseball and fun time for anybody that loves pitching.
Wait, you mean it wasn't all Scott Hatteberg?
Scott Hatteberg, man, Scott Hatteberg was cool. I mean, a funny thing about that movie Moneyball is you didn't hear anything about Miguel Tejada. You didn't hear anything about Eric Chavez. Like,
you didn't hear anything about the pitching staff.
About Barry Zito, Mark Mulder, Tim Hudson. You didn't hear about anybody. It was about I can't think of his name now, but the Sidewinder setup man that they signed that nobody wanted.
Corey Bradford.
Yeah, it wasn't Corey. It was Chad Bradford.
Chad Bradford. There we go.
Chad Bradford. You know, and guys like that. It was amazing. If you have not seen Moneyball, literally one of the best movies ever. Like, especially if you're a baseball fan, but even if you're not, it's fantastic.
I love the movie. I hate the fact that they don't give any love to that pitching staff. That was one of the greatest pitching staffs. Miguel Tejada being like the best shortstop in baseball, defensive and offensive shortstop in baseball for like that small period of time. Eric Chavez, just a power hitting third baseman that also had a fantastic glove, man. Like that whole team was just stacked top to bottom, but we built the entire narrative around Scott Hatteberg being a picking machine.
the words of Ron Washington. The guy that played Ron Washington in that movie was absolutely perfect. Like, couldn't nail it more. That was awesome.
Okay, so I think as this goes on, if we start doing this like on a weekly thing, I want to come up with like other videos just for us to have like our nostalgia act, because I think that's what baseball is, right? Like, sure. I love baseball now, but if you show me anything with a big fat drunk David Wells throwing that nasty ass curveball of his that he had, I am all about it, man. Like, you give me that into my veins all day long. So I think we'll come up with a couple of little videos we can like surprise one another with those as we go forward with this stuff. But the Arizona Diamondbacks are your team. The New York Yankees obviously are my team. We've had debates about the year 2001, which I don't think actually happened. I don't remember anything of that year being anything of note. But both of these teams in the last couple of years have reached the World Series. Arizona last year, not able to really get there. The Yankees get there last year and just have an epic meltdown in Game 5 in the 5th inning, which will be one of the greatest meltdowns you've ever seen in a series, to go along with their blowing the 3-0 lead. What do these two teams have to do, Danny, to like just get back into the postseason and hopefully make a deep run?
You know, I'll start with the Arizona Diamondbacks. You know, they had the number one highest scoring offense last year. They beat the Dodgers. They beat the Braves, the Phillies. We scored more runs than any team in the National League. And so I think offense, and the only real key that we lost was Christian Walker. But then we turned around and we signed Josh Naylor, who hit 31 home runs and drove in 108 RBIs. So we didn't lose a lot on our offense. If Corbin Carroll, even, who had a great second half, but had an awful first half after his MVP Rookie of the Year run that he went on in his first year, if he could just get back to the same old Corbin Carroll, which he's having a great spring, So offense isn't an issue for me. I mean, even our guys that aren't starting, like Alec Thomas is not slated to start in the outfield, might be the best defensive center fielder in the National League right now. Can also hit 260, 270, with a 710 OPS. Like, he's not going to drive the ball very far. He's not going to crush the ball, but he'll hit for average, and he's a fantastic center fielder. But we even have guys that can come off the bench and have an impact. I mean, we just signed Geraldo Perdomo, our shortstop, to an extension, when we have Jordan Lawler, who's our number one ranked prospect right now, along with Blaze Alexander, both who can play short. So we've got options everywhere in case injuries happen or whatever. So offense is great. Starting five is great. I'll say the top four of the five could be a phenomenal rotation. I mean, when you have Corbin Burns at the top, you have Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly, those big three right there. And then Eduardo Rodriguez, if he can be that innings eater, 3.8 ERA, 1.25 whip guy, that's all we really need. If he can start 32 games, it would be fantastic. The only struggle that we're having is we have Brandon Pfaadt that's supposed to be our fifth starter. He had some big postseason moments in our World Series run. He's a young right-handed pitcher, sinker slider guy. And he's had a tough spring. He's got a mid-5 ERA. He's got a 1.88 whip. We just watched him come out of the bullpen in his last game against the Royals. So I don't know what their plan is with him. But, some of the MLB experts and some people that are really close to the game are talking about, we can't forget about Jordan Montgomery and all the great years that he had. And then he didn't get signed. He's fired Scott Boras. He really had a rough little 3 or 4 months there. Then he goes with the Diamondbacks on a 1-year deal with a club option for a second year, or with a mutual option for a second year. And he had an awful year. He had like a 6 ERA. He didn't look good. His velocity was down a couple miles an hour when he wasn't a flamethrower to begin with. And he got hit around. He even came out of the bullpen a couple of games towards the end. Well, coming into spring, it was like, well, if Brandon Pfaadt doesn't work out and he's young and we can kind of still work on him, we always have Jordan Montgomery, but now he's got a left index finger, injury. He's only made one appearance where he gave up, I want to say 3 or 4 runs in just a third of an inning. But then we have a guy, we've even got a little bit of depth when it comes to starters. We've got a guy named Ryan Nelson, who started 4 games this year. He's thrown 9 innings. He's got a 2.25 ERA and a 0.88 whip. But he is one of those guys. He's 93, 95, good sinker slider guy that could kind of fill that 5th spot. But really, if you look at those top 4, Corbin Burns, I'd put up against anybody. Zach Gallen, I'd put up against anybody. Merrill Kelly started the World Baseball Classic in that championship game against Japan. He was the only Diamondback that was on the team. And he's just one of those solid guys. If you don't know a lot about Merrill Kelly, he was drafted, I want to say in 2010, went through the minor league ranks, made it up to, I think, AA, and then couldn't do anything. Then he went to Korea. He went to Korea for 2 years, played professional over there, came back, made it to the big leagues, and he's having a great year. I mean, he's had a great 3 or 4 years with our club, a solid starter, to where last year they were like, who's our real ace? Is it Zach Gallen or is it Merrill Kelly? Everybody knew it was Zach Gallen, but Merrill was that good. So our starting pitching, and then even if you go into our bullpen, we've got Justin Martinez right now, who's slated to be our closer. So now Justin Martinez, young guy, I want to say he's 23 years old, got called up last year because we had a couple arms go down with minor injuries. So they called him up maybe a little bit early. I saw his first game in person, and his first 3 or 4 fastballs were 101, 102. So the guy throws massive heat. Last year in the National League, he had the most pitches at 100 miles an hour, more than anybody in the whole National League. The only guy that beat him in the major leagues was the Miller guy. Was it Mason or somebody? Who's the A's, Oakland A's closer that just throws?
Oh yeah, he just throws gas.
Yeah, him and the Twins closer are the only ones that threw more fastballs over 100. So he's got a great arm. But you also have Kevin Ginkel, who is been in the setup role. He's been in the closer role. This spring he's doing great. He's got a 2.25 ERA with an under a 1 whip. Just a solid guy. He's not going to blow you away with upper 90s. But and then you've got AJ Puck, left-handed pitcher, started with Oakland, went to Miami. We traded a couple minor league guys for him mid-season last year. First half of 2024, AJ Puck had a 4.30 ERA with Miami. Came over to the Diamondbacks, played in 30 games through 27 innings, and had a 1.30 ERA. struck out 51 guys in 27 innings in his second half with the Diamondbacks, and he's a lefty. So I know Torey Lovullo and what he likes to say in situations like this. Even when Paul Sewald went down at the beginning of last year, after he had a great 2023, they said, who's your closer going to be? He never named anybody. He said, maybe it'll be Kevin Ginkel, maybe it'll be Joe Mantiply, maybe it'll be some of these other guys, but he likes the matchup game. He likes to play the matchup game and not name a specific closer. To this day, and we're halfway through spring, he has not named his closer yet. And I do think it's because he's got good righties and good lefties that he can play that matchup game come the ninth inning. So everybody's got to be ready. And the cool thing is this is his second year kind of playing that game, the matchup game. So the guys are used to it. Some closers need that ego, push to be like, I'm the closer, ninth inning's mine. The D-backs aren't like that. Anybody's ready at any time in the ninth, especially those four guys, two of them being lefties, two of them being righties. So up and down the lineup, if it wasn't for the Dodgers having a super team, I mean, they would be my favorite in the National League if it wasn't for the Dodgers. I put them in front of the Phillies. I put them in front of the Braves. So yeah, they look good. Their spring is looking solid. As long as we can stay healthy in that 4 and 5, as long as Eduardo Rodriguez can be who he's always been, and as long as we can figure out the fifth spot in the rotation, I like our chances big time.
Closing that loop, the Oakland A's closer is Mason Miller, and then the closer for the Twins is Johan Duran. And if you haven't seen his entrance and the way he throws a baseball, Duran is like it's one of the fastest things I've seen. Like his delivery's kind of odd too. Like everything about it's just I love closers like that, man. Like
yeah,
and that's why to me like it's such a shock that the Arizona Diamondbacks don't basically have like a closer by committee, because you never really see that in baseball. I don't think we've really ever seen it like to the extent that Arizona's done it, because like you said, it's all about the ego. Like, this is my inning, I'm doing this. We all know who our role is. But whenever you have all these guys and just great talented arms, hell, it gives your team an advantage I don't think very many teams out there have. So you might have convinced me that they could be one of the better teams in the NL. I'm just one of these guys, I've got to see it for the whole season, man. Like,
yeah,
you know how I am. I know how bad the Yankees are going to be this year, but when the season starts, I'm going to be like, yeah, we're going to go 97 and we're going to get 122 wins this year. Like, we're going to be awesome. But It's just not going to be the way for the Yankees. I think I've got to see that from the Diamondbacks as well. You're my Diamondbacks guy, Danny, so you got to inform me on this team and what's going on with them.
Yeah, and I'm a realist too. If we didn't look, yes, I am. I went into 2023, we went to the World Series. The spring training before that, the year of 2023, I said, this is not our year. We need to get some of our young guys some at-bats, get them some starts so we can prepare for the next three. We got Corbin Carroll coming up. Like, we got all these young guys coming up. Let's just get them some at-bats. I did not expect that at all. Now, I will say that the Diamondbacks, there are just some what-ifs with the arms. That's the only thing. Not Corbin Burns, not Zach Gallen, not Merrill Kelly. But the rest of the arms, the starting pitchers, there are some question marks there. The bullpen is even some mild question marks. I mean, we got some middle reliever guys that we're not sure who's going to make the club, who's not, and that can be tough. There's going to be games that Corbin Burns is only going to go 4 or 5 innings. Somebody's going to need to come in and throw the 6th and 7th. We don't necessarily have 100% confidence in who that guy is right now. That's just the reality of it. But even last year, it was shocking to me when I looked up. Actually, I heard it on the radio when I was driving to work one day that the Diamondbacks had the highest, the number one run scored in all of the National League last year. I was like, dang, that's crazy. We still won 86 games and came 1 game away from making it to the playoffs. But yeah, I mean, again, that's what I talked to some of these WBC guys about was, team, Brazil coming in and playing against, maybe the Dominican Republic or maybe in this next round. I mean, I asked them, I said, how do you guys go in and be real with yourselves to say, they got a roster full of major league guys and, we're Team Brazil. Like, how do you guys get hyped up and be realistic and come in there and try to play? And a lot of guys like Dante Bichette and Lucas Ramirez both said, that's a great thing about baseball is once you get on that field, it really is whoever shows up to play that day. There's teams like, the Oakland A's who have struggled for a long time that could beat the Yankees 2 out of 3 in a series. And it's like, dang, really? Like, that's just surprising, but that's baseball. So it really is, I think managing and coaching goes a long ways in Major League Baseball. I think that's one thing that gets overlooked a lot of times. People say the manager doesn't really, a lot of head coaches, whether it's NBA or NFL or Major League Baseball, they don't really contribute as much, like that much, blah, blah, blah. I disagree when it comes to Major League Baseball. I think that the way that they strategize, who's going in the game, who they're bringing in to play the matchup game versus pitchers versus hitters, when to play small ball, when to send a runner, all these things are big, contributing factors to winning. And I like what Torey Lovullo does, and I like what Aaron Boone does. So I do think, talking about the Yankees, I think the Red Sox made a lot of moves. They're back. The Toronto Blue Jays are always going to be one of those like annoying, like, God, they're good. They're kind of like the American League version of the San Diego Padres to me. They always spend money. They always have like good hitters, good people. They're not afraid to write somebody a check. They almost, I guess, had Shohei in the bag at one point. They're not afraid to do all these things, but then they just don't win. Like they don't win, but they still have, Dante or Bo Bichette. They still have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. They still have a lot of these guys. I mean, now they have
Vlad Jr.
Yeah, and they messed up. You think they should have signed him to massive extension?
I think they should have, because I feel like he's going to be a Yankee next year. Like all the signs are pointing, like, and that's me as a Yankees fan, right? Like you can't let your number one guy go to your in-division rival. Like you just can't do that. And if Vlad Jr. joins the Yankees, that's going to be such a hit to Toronto, man. Like such a hit for them. You've got to do anything you can to keep him.
Yeah, and I know they already dropped the ball. I don't know what kind of money he was asking for. I don't know if I would give Vlad. I mean, he did have a rough 2023, and he was even a little bit shaky in 2022. He had a bounce back year last year, but he's one of those guys like Fernando Tatis Jr. that just he's borderline the face of baseball now. Like Shohei, Vlad Guerrero Jr., Fernando Tatis. Those are the new like guys that are going to be the face of baseball for the next 10, 15 years. You got to sign a guy like that when he's on your squad. I mean, I think that's a big mistake.
I can't wait for the rumors to come out, or like, how all the conspiracy things come out of like, oh no, the Yankees are doing it so that way they can compete with the Dodgers and blah, 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 blah. That's why the Yankees didn't spend the money on Juan Soto and all that. I can't wait for the conspiracy theories to start coming out whenever it's about Vlad Jr. and the Yankees, man.
Oh yeah. Oh,
it's going to happen. We know it's going to happen.
Well, what is your biggest concern besides Garrett Cole going down? That's obviously a massive blow. But if you had to kind of look at the Yankees on paper and say, I feel good about this, I struggle, even though I'm a Yankee fan, I struggle feeling good about this, being starting pitchers, bullpen, and starting nine.
I think the one thing that really concerns me for the Yankees is like Giancarlo Stanton. You kind of expect that he's going to be injured on and off the whole season. Like that's just what he does, right? As long as he's healthy in the playoffs, because as we saw last year, the dude's a primetime performer. Like he loves that type of stage, that type of spotlight. The issue that I have with the Yankees is pitching. And anytime you lose a guy like Garrett Cole, who's a multi-time Cy Young winner, who's always going to be in that conversation because he eats innings and he does all kinds of stuff for you, it just doesn't feel like. I think I'm so jilted with them because following the World Series wins that they had in the early 2000s, they had great pitching for those wins, and they kind of let some of those pitchers go. And then we got guys like Carl Pavano to come in and save the day for the Yankees. And they always had a great offense, right? Like no one questioned the offense that the Yankees had. It was the pitching. And I'm just seeing, again, the Spider-Man meme of this is what the Yankees are going to be. They're going to have a great offense, and then they're not going to have the pitching. And then the vice versa comes up. They're going to have great pitching, and then the offense isn't going to do jack shit. So it just feels like we're stuck in this loop, right? And then being so close and being outclassed the way that they were outclassed in the World Series, because let's face it, this should have been a sweep. Like Game 5 should have never happened. That the way they melted down in Game 5 should have never happened because they shouldn't have ever been there. Yeah. It's just it feels like even though they were in the World Series, they're still so far away. And losing a guy like Garrett Cole, that's huge, man. And I know Marcus Stroman now he gets to finally not be in the bullpen; he gets to be the guy. But whenever he's pitched, he's been so bipolar that you don't know what version of him you're getting, because you can have weeks where he's unhittable and then weeks where he's given up 7 or 8 runs in a game.
Yeah. Yeah, their lineup, I said this last year. I said if Juan Soto and Aaron Judge, if they go on any sort of cold streak during the playoffs or any streak, any 2 weeks, span during the regular season, the Yankees offense is going to struggle, because without those two guys, they're an average lineup. I mean, they are. So this year, if I look at their lineup, they've got
I really like the Paul Goldschmidt signing. Like, I think that's a great guy that you got at first base, because I think the Yankees did have like weak first base play last year. So I love that signing, but I feel like you need pitching. Like, I always feel, maybe it's just me being me, right? Like the guy that used to pitch, you always need pitching. And their bullpen, to me, their starting rotation, to me, it doesn't inspire me to think that this is going to be a team that can win a World Series.
Yeah, and like we always talk about, starting pitching, I mean, you need depth more than anything. There's never been a time where your top 5 starting pitchers going into a season all started 32 games. Somebody goes down with an injury for a couple weeks or a couple months or whatever, and you got, next man up sort of mentality. And the Yankees don't necessarily have that. I mean, they don't necessarily have a great starting 5 as it is right now, with Gil being on the IL, Garrett Cole being out for the year. I mean, it's tough. We talk about Clark Schmidt. I mean, I mentioned it a little bit earlier off air, but he is a wild card that could, I think, really surprise people. With his stuff's nasty, and now he's kind of got a couple of years under his belt. He did great with San Diego. But again, it's like, if some of those guys don't show up, or if they have a tough April and May, it's going to be a long season for the Yankees. So I agree with you. I think the depth really hurts in their starting rotation, and it's along with their bullpen too. I mean, their bullpen, they've got a handful, 2 or 3 really good arms, but without them, it's questionable at best.
And that's the thing too, right? Is like, you can have a phenomenal closer and a great setup guy, but if you're trailing most games because your pitching staff might not have it.
Yeah.
And like that to me is the issue, right? Like, first base, where, you have Paul Goldschmidt, you got Austin Wells as, your catcher, Jazz Chisholm at second base, which I loved the Yankees getting Jazz. I thought they needed someone who can run the bases. We saw the menace he was in the ALCS, just stealing as often as he possibly could, right?
Yeah.
Then having Oswaldo Cabrera over at third base and stuff like that. Anthony Volpe, I love me some Anthony Volpe. He loves just being the New York Yankees, a New York guy. Like, yeah. It's great seeing him there. Jason Dominguez, I know he was like one of those top prospects, and like he showed some glimpses and stuff like that. I just don't know if the spotlight, like now having the position, does he have what it takes to hold on to the position? You know what I mean? Like that fire, that drive, like you finally made it. Are you going to let up? Obviously Aaron Judge, I like the Cody Bellinger signing. Anytime you can get a lefty that hits for power, I'm all about it. And then, of course, the question mark is going to be Giancarlo Stanton. When does he come back? He's always hurt, so you got to have someone who can, fill those gaps. Offensively, I think they'll be all right. Like, I don't see them being a bottom-dwelling type team. I see them being top 5, top 10 in most categories, especially in the AL, right? That pitching staff, though, it's lacking so much. And then the second you lose Garrett Cole, now you've got to like worry about your 5th, 6th starter guy, because your spot starter, you normally want that guy in there to help out for the short-term injuries. Now you're going to have short-term injuries because that's what happens in the baseball season. Not having Garrett Cole, letting Nestor Cortez walk away the way that they just kind of just, go do your thing in Minnesota now, or Milwaukee now. You lost depth. And that to me is so important for the New York Yankees, especially in that division, especially in the American League, because I don't see really any team in the American League that I say, okay, that's going to be the team that clear cut wins the entire league. Now you've kind of hurt yourself because you don't have any depth. And they're the Yankees. Obviously, they're going to make some trades towards the trade deadline. But I feel like there's a real possibility we see this team just suck the entire first half of the season and be out of it by the time the trade deadline comes around.
Yeah, and I'm going to disagree with you on their lineup. I think you put a lot of pressure on people like Aaron Judge when Cody Bellinger, MVP Cody Bellinger, when the pressure was on and for him to come back and have repeat great years, he struggled. He hit real bad there for a couple of years. Then he went back. Then he went to Chicago Cubs on a 1-year deal, and he had a great year. And now he's playing on the big stage in New York. Not everybody can play on the big stage in New York. We see it all the time.
But I also think that's the thing is he doesn't have to be the guy. He's just a guy. That's Aaron Judge's team, man. Like, he can be in the background. We've all seen, what was it? 2017 was the MVP season. 5-6 years of just mediocrity. If you can just get 25 to 30 bombs out of him, I think you're fine. Like I think the Yankees would be happy with that. The fan base would be happy with that.
Yeah, I hear you. But there's not a lot of protection for Aaron Judge. I mean, even Paul Goldschmidt, who ex-Diamondback, I'm a huge Paul Goldschmidt guy. He's not obviously who he used to be. The thing I like about Paul Goldschmidt, though, is he hits to all fields. So he hits Oppo. He hits Oppo home runs a lot. When you have that short porch to right, that can help. Plays solid first base. He's a Gold Glove winner. But you are relying on a lot of the guys' upside. Like if they are, in between here and here, and a lot of what we're projecting their stats to be, and who we're projecting Jazz Chisholm to be, who we're projecting Austin Wells to be. Oswaldo Cabrera is like one of those guys that it's like, we don't really have a solid third baseman to start. Let's throw Oswaldo over there kind of thing. But his job is up in the air probably every week with Aaron Boone. And so there's just not if Aaron Judge goes on any sort of a cold streak, like I said last year, you're putting a lot of pressure on Jazz Chisholm, on Cody Bellinger, on Giancarlo Stanton if he's going to be there, if he's not going to be hurt, but they're kind of like how I feel about the bottom rotation of the Arizona Diamondbacks. If they are who I know they could be, they're going to be scary good. That lineup could be really good. Jazz Chisholm, Paul Goldschmidt could pop off. Cody Bellinger could have another MVP year. Giancarlo Stanton could start 120, 130 games and not be injured for half or more. I mean, these could all be like, oh my gosh, that'd be awesome if they could, sort of thing. And they could have a great lineup. But on the other side of that, if they have average years, that lineup, on my opinion, could be scary. It's the one lineup that I look at from top to bottom, and I'm like, all right, Bellinger's pretty solid. Aaron Judge might win the MVP again. But other than that, it's like we don't really know.
And I think that's the frustrating thing for me as a Yankees fan, because even with Garrett Cole, I feel like it was going to be an uphill climb. And I feel like this team realistically can be a World Series contender or completely miss the playoffs at the same time. Like, I don't think you see a lot of teams that are like that, right? Like, you can see the Diamondbacks, okay, maybe they can be a wild card team because we got to worry about the Dodgers, right? But they're going to be competitive. You see the Yankees and you think to yourself, man, what they could be is fantastic.
Yeah.
The reality of it could also be they were terrible. And I'm not used to that with the New York Yankees. I'm used to, you give me some consistency, right? Like, I'm an old school Yankees guy. I've been watching them since the 90s, right? Give me something that makes me feel better about what this is. I'm surprised there wasn't a trade or something made the day that they found out Garrett Cole was going to be gone. Like the second that happened, I'm surprised Brian Cashman didn't do that. Younger Cashman would have. Older Cashman now kind of rolls with the flow, waits till the trade deadline.
Yeah.
My fear is there's a real possibility with this team that they're out of it by the time the trade deadline comes around. Like, there's a real possibility with it. Because you're right. Judge goes cold. Bellinger goes cold. Jazz goes cold, because we've seen these guys have some of those streakiness in them. Stanton's not there to protect. It becomes very, very difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, and Jason Dominguez is one of those guys that I'm guessing, I'd have to look it up, but I want to say he's like 22 years old. He was like, when he was 18 years old, I want to say he was the number one prospect at one point in all of baseball. Mm-hmm. So he could pop off too. And you don't call somebody the number one prospect in all of baseball unless you've done your homework as a scout, unless a lot of people know about him. So he could come up and do a lot of things too. So who knows, man? I mean, that lineup could be great, could be, could struggle, could be middle of the road. But you're right. It's all about starting pitching with New York, and it's tough right now.
All right. So let's go ahead and knock this out. We got a couple of minutes left here on the show. Shout out to everyone that tuned in to watch Danny and I talk baseball. I've learned, Danny, most people don't like me talking baseball. Like, I'm so glad that I get to have you here, because I finally get to talk baseball with someone who seemingly cares about baseball the same way that I do. It's insane. So let's do it real quick. And I know I'm putting you on the spot because I didn't plan this out for you. I want to see who you think, just so that way, whenever you're wrong, I can play this back at the end of the season. Who are going to be your division winners this year?
So division winner, obviously, will start in the NL. So NL West will be the Dodgers, unfortunately. I just think they're too good. They're too stacked. They've got their guys slated to be like their number 7 and number 8 starter that could be middle of the road starters for any other starting 5. So they've got depth. They've got talent. They're ridiculous. And their lineup is full of MVPs. So Dodgers, I think, take the NL West with the Diamondbacks taking a wild card spot. NL Central is probably going to be the toughest division just because everybody's so young. The records are going to be, I mean, your division winner might have 85, 86 wins. But yeah, I would say I would probably give it to the Cubs or the Milwaukee Brewers to win that division. Milwaukee, just because I lost all faith in them last year when they traded away Corbin Burns to the Baltimore Orioles, and they got rid of somebody else too. But they got rid of a couple guys. They even talked about trading Devin Williams before. And I thought Milwaukee's kind of decided to give up, and I think they're going to start rebuilding. But then Pat Murphy comes out, almost wins Manager of the Year. It has a great, amazing run with the Milwaukee Brewers, and he did great after losing Craig Counsell to the Cubs and all that stuff. So I think either Brewers or Cubs. I mean, even the Reds could be scary with their lineup too. But and then NL East, that's a very tough division because you've got the Phillies, you've got the Braves. And then you've even got the Mets, who annoy me. The Mets are just, I don't know. They've spent all this money, and their fans are always so like, oh, we're finally good. And then they suck. Like, I mean, even last year when they made it to the playoffs, I was just like, you guys barely made it in. All right, relax.
That was a fraudulent team that made it to the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. But so I would say, but if I had to pick one, I would say the Phillies. I think if the Braves were who they were 2 years ago, it'd be a different conversation. They're still really good, but I would say the Phillies are just, and the Phillies aren't really talked about. I mean, people are talking about the Dodgers all the time. People are talking about the Yankees and them signing Bellinger and some of these and trading for Devin Williams, or did they sign Devin Williams? I don't even remember. But they talk about a lot of teams, but the Phillies are super good and have Bryce Harper. They've got JT Realmuto behind the plate. They've got a lot of these guys. They've got Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler as starters. They're a great organization. So I'd say the Phillies. And the Phillies, besides the Dodgers, are my biggest scare for the NL for the Diamondbacks to go all the way back to the World Series. So yeah, Phillies in the NL on the East. So going back to the West, AL West is another one of those tough divisions. It's like the Mariners could do it if they had all their pieces in place, and if Julio Rodriguez could have a year like we know he's capable of having. But the Angels are going to suck. The A's, who are they? The Sacramento A's. We don't even know what their names are.
They're just the A's. Remember, they don't have a city. They're just the A's.
How sad. And they're signing free agents. They're convincing guys to come and play in this AAA stadium for a couple years. Wild. And they're actually spending money for the first time. It's crazy.
All it took was leaving Oakland.
It's the best move they ever made. But I would say probably the Texas Rangers take the AL West. I don't know if Seattle's good enough. I feel like 2 years ago they were when they had Scott Service as their manager, but they just didn't play as well as they needed to play to go far. So I would say the Texas Rangers take the AL West. AL Central, I love the Kansas City Royals. I mean, I love Bobby Witt Jr. could win the MVP this year. The guy hits for power. He's a 5-tool player. He's an amazing person for Major League Baseball. When we talk about the face of Major League Baseball in being Ohtani and some of the other guys that I named, Bobby Witt Jr., if he played anywhere else other than Kansas City, you know, if he played in a big city, he would for sure be one of the faces of Major League Baseball, and he still is. But man, I got to think about the AL Central. White Sox are going to lose every game. Yeah. Oh man, let's see who else is in the AL Central.
Because that to me is like kind of who I was thinking. It's either between Cleveland or it's between Kansas
Cleveland.
City. And to me, Detroit probably not going to do anything. I think Detroit's got a decent team around them, but I don't think it's a playoff contending team. It's Cleveland, Kansas City to me. And the White Sox, we already know that's just the hottest of garbage. And I feel like I'm missing someone else in the AL Central.
Yeah, you got Cleveland, you have Kansas City, you have
Detroit,
who's
Minnesota, the Twins. Ooh,
oh, Minnesota, yeah.
That's interesting.
But again, both Centrals, AL and NL, are both very up in the air, and it's up for grabs. Minus, the White Sox and I mean, I feel like the NL Central is really up for grabs, but the AL Central even. I mean, Guardians could do something. I mean, even the Reds, man, like in the NL. I mean, they got Terry Francona, they've got Ellie De La Cruz, like they've got some of these guys that could do a lot. So, yeah, I'd probably say, I guess I'm going to go for Kansas City and say that they'll probably take the AL Central. And then the AL East, man, that's a big one based off of moves. Signing Alex Bregman, who I can't stand. But he's good, whatever. Signing Alex Bregman, signing some of their starting pitchers that they have. I mean, they've got guys like Tanner Houck that's like the right-handed Chris Sale that a lot of times people compared him to when he first was coming up, and him and Chris Sale were on the same team, both played for Boston. I mean, I think they're starting five, and I mean, who's the other guy that they signed? I can't think of his freaking name right now, from the Dodgers on a 1-year deal. Right-handed pitcher, went through Tommy John last year. Freaking A, man. What's his name?
I'm not talking about that team.
Boston Red Sox.
No, I'm not talking
Beantown, baby.
I don't even know where that is.
So here's my conclusion for the AL East. So Boston Red Sox. Let me see. Free agent signings. This is great radio, huh? Let me see. Transactions.
And I'm just letting you sink in it too, because I ain't helping out at all.
Yeah.
Out with that team.
Yeah. God, why can't I think of that right-hander's name? I can't believe you can't think of it. You probably know. You're just not saying it just because you don't like them.
I'm just out here doing my thing, having myself a good old time, not worrying about a thing at all.
I need to know who this is. I'm not
go
moving
take
on.
me a walk.
Hey,
That's
Adam,
giving you it right there.
Walker Buehler.
There we go.
Walker Buehler, baby. I think he's going to have a lot bigger of a year than people think. I think that they said, he came back from Tommy John towards the end of last season with LA, and he kind of got hit around a little bit. I'm like, well, the guy hasn't played in competitive baseball, let alone Major League Baseball, in over a year. Plus, he's got a new ligament inserted into his elbow. Like, he's going to go – everybody goes through those things. But a lot of them come back throwing harder. So now he's had a full offseason under his belt as healthy. So I think in the AL East, I think if it wasn't for Garrett Cole going down, I would have chosen the Yankees by 1 or 2 games. They would have won that division. I think Boston's going to be a lot closer than people think. But right now I have Boston winning the AL East.
I hate hearing that. I will take any team but Boston to win the AL East. Just please not Boston. Anybody but Boston. Even if the world implodes, I'm happy with that.
Hey, I have a question. I thought about this yesterday.
Uh-oh.
So their manager, what's their manager's name? Do you remember off the top of your head?
For Boston?
Yeah.
Alex Cora?
Alex Cora was part of that cheating scandal in Houston.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're a huge cheater. I imagine they're cheating now. They were probably cheating back in 2004, too. That team's been cheating ever since cheating's been cheating.
Well, now you have Alex Bregman back with Alex Cora. And they've been in the office a couple times alone with the door shut. And he's like, you want to run it back? You want to run it back? We could do something else. I mean, that little buzzer thing that Altuve had under his jersey, you will never be able to find that unless you search in people's jerseys. You could play that game. I mean, the only thing now is that I'm being an idiot thinking about is they use PitchCom now. So I guess that doesn't really help our situation, but they have PitchCom.
They're going to find some way to cheat. Like inside this watch, they'll never lose a game at home because it's kind of like what the Patriots used to do with like having the radios sending signals over to like the home team. I think that's what's going to happen. They're going to be hacking some sort of signal. They'll know exactly what pitch is happening. They'll push the button for PitchCom and it goes into the batter's helmet. Something like that happens. We'll see. I hate them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I ever since the Astros went through that whole thing, and I won't ever. People are like, quit talking about it. I'm like, you guys didn't get punished at all. No, you still have your World Series. The only guy that got punished was AJ Hinch, who might not have really even came up with the idea. Of course, he knew about it, but he didn't stop it. So he's guilty for sure. But I think this was a lot more Alex Cora being an ex-hitter, teaming up with his hitting buddies, figuring that whole thing out. And AJ Hinch was like, hey, whatever, do your thing. And nobody else got punished. So I think the World Series rings were taken from LA was one of them that they shouldn't have won. I forget who else they beat that they think that. Oh, the Yankees. Yeah. Chapman giving up that home run to Altuve. That was right in the middle of all that. So I'm pissed at anybody that ever played on that team, and I'll never forgive them. I'll never forgive Correa. I'll never forgive any of those dudes, because it sucks and it's bad for baseball, and I'll never stop talking about it.
There's something about mutual hate that brings people together more than mutual love does. Danny, you know I got nothing but love for you, my guy. We're up against the clock right now. I appreciate the time that you took to do this. I can't wait. I'm feeling good about the fact that maybe you and I might get together on opening day for the Arizona Diamondbacks. I'm looking forward to that if they allow us to be there. Arizona, please, we're counting on you. Let me and Danny hang out, have a couple of drinks, probably too many drinks whenever me and this guy get together. But we'll see how all that goes. Danny, I appreciate you, my guy. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on.
We all know there's hundreds of betting sites out there, but don't be fooled. Some sites are legal in some states only. Some sites pay in Bitcoin, and some sites have even been hacked. BetUS, however, has been in business for over 30 years. Future bets are paying out in the thousands, and if you act right now, you can still bet on the biggest games in sports. Visit BetUS.com, or you can click the link at nessp.info. BetUS, check it out and bet responsibly. Are you a fellow car guy? I have a 2008 Ford Mustang GT convertible, and nothing makes me happier in that car than when it's nice and clean. And you know who helps me get there? RevAutoCarCare.com. They help me get that pony looking as nice and shiny and ready for any of the car meetups that are all around the great city of El Paso. Spoil your car and go to RevAutoCarCare.com/Tipton and view all the inventory they have and find out what works for you to help make your ride shine. RevAutoCarCare.com/Tipton. Use promo code Tipton33 at checkout to save 15%.